Exposed, How My Daughter's Family Failure label turned into an incredible bakery success story. Sarah watched droplets of sweat bead on her forehead as she meticulously lined the baking pans with parchment paper. The dim light of their kitchen seemed inadequate against the weight of expectation she felt pressing down on her. What if it's not enough? The thought slipped into her mind, hissing like a snake, its fangs sharp with the edges of past failures. Emily had battled through her school issues, and Sarah felt that same tension mirrored in this kitchen, the baking competition looming just around the corner. A family failure was a label cast upon them like a shadow, and each point of judgment echoed louder with every whisk stir, every comedic flour fight, and every joyous recipe attempted over the last few months. The town buzzed with gossip, its familiar faces peering into their lives, making assumptions. She could almost pinpoint them: the well-meaning neighbor, the judgmental relative, even the friendly clerk at the grocery store. Their whispers chased her like ghosts. Every smile exchanged felt coated in disdain, an unapproving reminder of how Emily struggled, how Sarah seemed to be juggling everything but making any real impact. What if they were right? What if this endeavor fell flat just like her daughter's grades? Turning back to Emily, who bounced around the kitchen with a newfound joy, Sarah felt a flicker of pride mixed with anguish. The sweet scent of caramel wafted through the space, an invitation that momentarily drowned out her fears. Part of her wanted to believe there was magic in those moments when they crafted delicious desserts together, guided by the whispered voices of her late mother who had taught her everything about love and baking. Yet the other part of Sarah remained fraught with insecurity, wondering if this was enough to silence those whispers forever. Before they continued, she remembered an important detail. Hey, listen, as you dive deeper into this competition, we need to be smart. YouTube has been changing a lot lately, and many creators are losing notifications. If you're enjoying this journey, make sure to click the bell for all notifications, leave a like to help spread the word. It felt awkward, but they both needed this chance. They needed every bit of support they could muster. Oh, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Curiosity drives memories forward. But as they let that thought pass, Sarah's anxiety surged once more. Emily would have to face the judges, and that meant facing the very community that had whispered about their failures. The pressure thickened like sticky caramel, clinging to their confidence. Each flutter in Sarah's chest became a ghastly reminder. What if Emily failed? What if, in one brief moment of judgment, the community's unkind whispers returned, erasing all the progress they had made? The day of the competition arrived, and Sarah's heart raced, not with pride, but with dread. She watched Emily meticulously decorate her cakes, her hands trembling slightly, much like Sarah's mind, which darted between hope and fear. What if the judges scowled, unable to see the love embedded in each layer? The reality hit Sarah hard. These were the criticisms she had tried to escape. As Emily faced the judges, a cold wave of despair enveloped Sarah. She never anticipated this, the glaring light of scrutiny and judgment forcing them back into a corner. Just as the moment began to unfold, Emily's face crumpled with realization. For Sarah, this wasn't merely about baking. It was about life, survival, and a bursting void filled with unresolved fear. It was a critical juncture, one that could fracture their newfound bond or fortify it. And as uncertainty flowed through every vein, Sarah understood one truth. Their journey was clashing against the label that had haunted them for too long. Would they transform their struggle into triumph, or would the stigma redefine them yet again? An uneasy thought lingered, hinting at choices lying just ahead. Sarah's heart sank as she leaned against the kitchen counter, wrestling with the chaos unfolding within her mind. The competition had turned from an enthusiastic dream to a nightmarish trial. Emily was brave, yet Sarah could see the tension stretching across her daughter's face. Every critique from the judges had the power to unravel the threads they had painstakingly woven over the past months. Like a composer facing a deaf audience, Emily's artistry hung in the balance, threatening to be misunderstood. In that moment, as the cold air from the kitchen window brushed against her sweat-dampened skin, Sarah recognized a flicker of determination sparking deep within her. This was not just Emily's battle, it was theirs. With that realization, her posture straightened and her breathing steadied, a subtle but significant shift in momentum. Perhaps confronting the shadows of their lives was exactly what they needed. As the judges turned to the audience, Sarah's practiced smile returned, though it felt strained. She couldn't hide from the whispers swirling around her. Instead, she would face them head-on, just as her daughter was trying to do. The voices of judgment still echoed in her ears, but now they morphed into encouragement, reminding her of the resilience they had shown on this arduous journey. But how could they harness that resilience when doubt threatened to overshadow it? "Focus on what we have achieved, Sarah," she whispered to herself, recalling the late-night baking sessions, the laughter, even the arguments as they explored recipes together. Each venture had been a step towards reclaiming their identities from that suffocating label of failure. But as their story imperiled exposing raw vulnerability, questions remained. What if all those moments turned out to be insufficient? What if they weren't ready for success, or worse, the scrutiny that came with it? In a sudden rush, she began clicking through their old baking videos on her phone, searching for a moment that echoed their commitment and creativity, something that could remind them of their capabilities. As each clip played, lively colors filled her screen, adorned with flower-covered hands and beaming smiles. There it was. In the shadow of their fears stood a precious foundation built on love and perseverance. Instinctively, her fingers danced over the screen, crafting a quick post to rally support, framing their struggle as they truly saw it, a journey of resilience rather than a mere competition. Emily glanced over, visibly relieved, sensing the shift in her mother's energy. "What are you doing?" she asked, intrigue flickering in her eyes despite the mounting pressure. "Reaching out. Whatever the outcome here, we need to remind ourselves that we're more than the whispers." "We're a team," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "This can connect us to others who need to hear our story." A knowing glance passed between them, a quiet pact forged under the pressure of competing expectations. And with that, they became ready. The sugar-coated anxiety that once clouded their hopes began to clear, revealing the strength they had embedded in their journey. As the judges moved from contestant to contestant, emboldened by Sarah's shift in perspective, she felt an electric charge, a newfound ambition igniting within her. This was not just about Emily. It was about reclaiming their narrative, a narrative torn by scrutiny, but threaded with tenacity. But as they approached the crucial moment, where the judges would announce the results, Sarah realized that the real judgment lay ahead. Were they prepared to confront not only the judges, but also the voices that had kept them shackled? Would victory be enough to silence the lingering doubts, or would the journey only further expose the depth of their struggle? With her heart racing, Sarah struggled to keep focus on Emily, ready to embrace whatever unfolded, but acutely aware that the intertwined fates of fear and resolve awaited their reckoning. The moment of truth loomed ahead. How would they write the next chapter of their lives? The announcement echoed through the auditorium like thunder, reverberating against the walls and deep within Sarah's chest. The judges spoke, their words blurring into a haze as she felt the weight of anticipation shift from her shoulders to Emily's. Would this be the moment they had longed for, or merely a stark reminder of their inadequacies? As they stepped forward to face the panel, the judges' scrutinizing gazes bore down on them. Sarah took a deep breath, the scent of buttercream and vanilla choking her senses, melding anxiety and hope into a single, sharpened focus. Each second stretched, sculpting the invisible tension into something palpable, tangible. Time hovered, teasing them with moments of possibility. "Emily," one judge started, his tone measured, "your presentation was both creative and compelling. But I think there were elements in your execution that could have been improved. You didn't fully connect the flavors." With that, it felt as if time halted. In the silence that followed, Sarah could see the flicker of frustration pass across Emily's brow. It mirrored her own inner tumult, reflecting every insecurity they had battled. Yet frustration was not an option. This moment demanded something different. "May I?" Sarah interjected, surprising even herself. The judges paused, and the crowd absorbed the unexpected twist. This was new territory for her. She had spent too long in the shadows, letting Emily's talent shine while she fretted in the background. But now there was clarity. The tugging at her heart was overpowered by urgency. "Yes, absolutely." One of the judges nodded, a crease of curiosity appearing on his forehead. "What you're seeing isn't just a dessert," Sarah said, her voice steady, gaining momentum. "Every element in Emily's crepe cake tells a story, our story. Each layer represents the countless hours we spent pushing through self-doubt and learning from failures. The flavors represent resilience." As she spoke, an unexpected strength surged through her words, each syllable birthing a new realization of their shared journey. Emily's gaze shifted to her mother, surprise melding with an awakening determination. This was no longer just the judge's evaluation. It was their collective narrative, transforming a painful label into a declaration of their combined strength and artistry. The judges listened, and in that energy, the clouds of uncertainty lightened. A hint of acknowledgement crept across their faces, and Sarah recognized the transformation in Emily's expression. Her daughter's fear receding, replaced by the essence of a budding craftsman ready to rise. But just as the tension shifted, so did Sarah's thoughts. She realized she was no longer merely fighting for Emily's vindication. She was reclaiming her own identity. This was their moment to identify not just as the underdogs, but as creators unchained from the harsh whispers of past failures. "Success isn't only defined by winning," Sarah continued, channeling her revelation. "It's also about recognizing what we've achieved together. We've worked hard to turn our dreams into something real. And that journey is not measured by a trophy alone." The judges exchanged glances, perhaps seeing something deeper than the flavors on their palates. But just as the glimmers of understanding began to bloom, Sarah felt an inner turmoil stirring once more. There were unanswered questions lingering in the ether. What if their attempt to redefine themselves was ultimately rejected by those whose opinions mattered so distinctly? As the judges deliberated, Sarah's heart raced with vulnerability. The fear of failure was alive yet again, knocking on the door of her consciousness, challenging their transformation with whispered reminders of the pain they encountered before. In that crucible of anxiety and revelation, Sarah made a pact with herself. Regardless of the outcome, she would embrace this new truth. Her journey alongside Emily was the truest measure of success. However, beneath the surge of resilience simmered concerns that they might still fall short of acceptance. And so, when the head judge finally rose, the air crackled with anticipation. "We need to address how this could lead to a new direction in your craft," he stated, pausing to heighten the tension. "What will you do if you're not chosen?" In that very moment, Sarah caught Emily's wide eyes, filled with determination, perhaps also uncertainty. Together, they braced against the rising tide, ready to confront whatever path lay ahead. Would they stand tall, riding the unfavorable winds, or would they retreat into the shadows of past discouragements? The real test awaited them behind the looming curtain of judgment. As the judges continued their hushed deliberations, Sarah's mind spun with a mixture of hope and dread. She recalled the journey that had brought them to this pivotal moment, the countless nights spent in the kitchen, the way flour dusted their clothes like badges of resilience, and how the aroma of baked goods had often masked their fears. It was more than just a baking competition. It represented the reclaiming of their lives, their stories woven into every dish they created. When the head judge finally spoke, offering the promise of new directions and potential growth, Sarah felt the urgency to prepare herself mentally for all possible outcomes. The idea of not being chosen loomed like a shadow, threatening to snuff out the light of their achievements. "What if we do fail again?" she questioned internally. That thought alone felt like a heavy weight on her heart, drawing her thoughts into a darker abyss. But just as doubt began to creep in, another voice rose within her, this time stronger and more resolute. "Failure doesn't define us," she reminded herself fiercely. "This is about more than acceptance. This is about stepping into the light and owning our truth." The voices of past critics and naysayers began to fade into silence, overshadowed by the clarity of the moment. "Let's explore a hypothetical scenario," one judge suggested, breaking through Sarah's intense reflections. "If you do not win today, what's your next step? How does this affect your commitment to each other and to your craft?" The question resonated deeply. Sarah met Emily's gaze again, her daughter nodding slightly as if to affirm her own thoughts. The moment held profound importance. It was a chance not just to define their path forward, but to solidify their partnership, an acknowledgement that they were in this together, regardless of accolades or judgments. "Winning is only a part of our journey," Sarah replied confidently, her heart hammering with purpose. "If we leave today without a trophy, we will continue. No matter what happens today, we'll go back to the drawing board, refine our skills, and learn from our experiences, together. Our love for baking and the journey we share is too valuable to give up." Emily's eyes sparkled, reflecting newfound assurance and alignment in their vision. There it was, the realization that their bond, forged in shared struggles, was their greatest asset. They had transcended beyond mother and daughter, becoming partners in artistry and resilience. The head judge raised an eyebrow, intrigued by their refreshing perspective. "So, you're suggesting that this experience, irrespective of outcome, will allow for growth rather than setback?" "Absolutely," Sarah affirmed. "Every setback can be reframed as a lesson. It's about learning who we are in relation to this craft and to each other." As Sarah's voice flowed with conviction, she felt an energy she hadn't anticipated. This moment wasn't just about answering a question. It was an opportunity to define themselves as creators of meaning, even in adversity. As the crowd held its breath, Sarah felt an unfamiliar surge of confidence, one that was no longer about competition, but rather about purpose. She understood that they were not just baking desserts, they were crafting stories, creating connections, and embracing their identities. Then came the final verdict, moments away from being revealed. The judges' serious expressions remained unreadable, but that nagging worry returned. Regardless of their decision, Sarah felt a turbulence of emotions brewing. She realized in that moment that acceptance didn't hinge solely on external validation, but on their resolve to pursue their passion tirelessly. No matter what judgment awaited them, Sarah now understood the essence of their journey, and that alone felt like a hard-won victory. But as their fate balanced precariously on the edge of the judge's decision, a new question began to form in Sarah's mind. What would she sacrifice to ensure that Emily never felt alone in the face of adversity again? The stakes rose as the moment of truth approached, leaving her breathless with anticipation. Would this be a step toward a promising future or another defining struggle? A line drawn in the sand that would alter the course of their intertwined journeys? The judges' deliberations felt like an eternity, stretching time until each second felt heavy with consequence. As the air thickened with tension, Sarah shifted her focus inward, grappling with the realization that success or failure was beyond mere accolades. Her heart raced, not just for the hope of winning, but for the deeper validation she sought. The confirmation that she was enough, that their relationship as mother and daughter had flourished into a partnership of resilience. When the announcement finally came, it was as if a light flash froze every thought. The head judge spoke with gravitas, but Sarah could only grasp fragmented pieces of his words, overwhelmed by the weight of his judgment. They had placed fourth. For a fleeting moment, disappointment surged within her. threatening to shatter the newfound confidence she had clung to only moments prior. Yet, looking at Emily, she saw a reflection of her own internal struggle. There was no shame in their placement. They had baked their hearts into every bite. They had created not just pastries, but a tapestry of their lives, woven with endless nights and shared laughter. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah felt that familiar flicker of resolve kindle within her. Fourth place did not strip them of their dreams. It was an opening, a door to redefine both expectations and aspirations. "Are you okay?" Emily whispered, folding her arms protectively across her chest, as if shielding herself from the sting of disappointment. "It's a chance for us to dig deeper," Sarah said, her voice steady. "What do you say we bring that recipe back to life and elevate it? We can still explore flavors we never dared to." The words flowed from her, carrying a sense of purpose that felt reassuring against the uncertainty looming outside. "Really?" Emily's question held both skepticism and hope. "Absolutely. We know our strengths now. Each layer we create will speak to that journey." In the depths of their shared experience, a realization blossomed. This was the real victory. It was not about the position they held, but about the growth that moment ignited in them. Back in their kitchen, flowers swirled like a soft cloud around them as they each resumed their roles, returning to a sanctuary that had always welcomed their aspirations. Sarah felt invigorated, her mind whirring with possibilities. They reevaluated their techniques, pushing beyond what they thought they were capable of. Emily was growing bolder in her ideas, experimenting with spices she had once considered too audacious. Together, they ignited a spark. Each dish served as an exploration of flavors, intertwined with their evolving story. Yet, amidst the thrill of creation, Sarah recognized the stakes were shifting. What if their journey was more than just baking? As Emily ventured into creating flavored syrups infused with childhood memories, Sarah wondered about opening a bakery, a space that would not only be a testament to their efforts, but also a haven for others seeking to find joy in creation. The thought thundered in her mind. Could they transcend their initial goal of being competition participants to being entrepreneurs? She hesitated, suddenly aware of the weight of such a decision. It would require sacrifices, investments of both financial and emotional resources. What would that demand from Emily? Would she be ready for the spotlight, unshielded now from judgment? As they poured themselves into crafting this new path, cracks of uncertainty began to show in Sarah's resolve. This was not just about external validation anymore. It was about redefining their identity in a world that often felt ready to dismiss them. They had crossed a line, yet the journey ahead shimmered with both excitement and apprehension. With flour dust still speckled across their cheeks, Sarah caught Emily's eye. "What do you think? Are we ready to take this leap?" Amid the excitement and hesitations, a fresh flood of emotions surged. She realized that embracing this potential venture meant unveiling deeper vulnerabilities. Would they both be prepared to face the layered wounds that came with growth and transformation? As they prepared for another experimental bake, the weight of those questions loomed, promising to test the very foundation of their partnership. Would the path forward reveal hidden strengths, or unravel their bond in the glare of unforeseen challenges? The atmosphere in the kitchen was thick with potential, yet beneath its warmth, Sarah felt a pulse of anxiety that gnawed at her confidence. As she watched Emily grind spices, her daughter's expressions fluctuated between joy and an underlying uncertainty that mirrored her own. The idea of a bakery lingered, nagging at the edges of Sarah's mind, and with it came the weight of responsibility. They could not embark on this journey thoughtlessly. Everything they built together, every ounce of trust, would be tested. "Why don't we start brainstorming a name?" Emily suggested, her voice tinged with eagerness that almost masked her fears. Yet Sarah couldn't shake the trepidation lodged in her chest. A name defined their venture, but also tethered them to the brave step they were contemplating. "Yeah, that's a good idea," Sarah replied, trying to summon a buoyancy she didn't quite feel. She required clarity, a mapped-out sense of direction. What do you envision when you picture it? Emily paused, her eyes drifting along the shelves that once served as mere storage, but now buzzed with ideas. Warmth, I think, like a place where people feel at home. And baked goods that change with the seasons? Her enthusiasm sparked something in Sarah, a flicker of vitality that offered a connection to the passion they had for baking. As they began to list ideas, Sarah noticed how Emily took the lead, her innate creativity emerging unimpeded. With each suggestion they jotted down, Sarah felt a strange sense of pride mixed with concern. Emily was evolving, crafting her identity right before her eyes, yet the very nature of this growth elicited fear about their venture. Would her daughter flourish or falter under new pressures? "Fresh whims," Emily proclaimed, grinning as if she'd just revealed the secret to happiness itself. Sarah caught her breath. The name was playful, authentic. It encapsulated the spirit of their baking. It was light yet grounded, inviting exploration. "Fresh whims," Sarah echoed, allowing the name to roll off her tongue. "It's engaging, capturing the essence of what we've wanted to create." But deep down, she feared whether they could live up to that name. Could they continuously deliver on the promise of whimsy and freshness? Or would they find themselves trapped in the shadows of their expectations? The flicker of self-doubt pushed against her as she shifted the conversation toward logistic realities, knowing well enough that pastries alone wouldn't keep the dream alive. "We'll need to think about supplies, location, financial backing." Each word carried weight. The burden of returning to the world of accountability felt daunting. "Mom, we have time to figure that out," Emily countered, her enthusiasm wrestling with the practicality that Sarah muddled her thoughts with. "What if we just focus on the recipes for now?" The suggestion sparked something in Sarah. It was an invitation back to joy, a reminder of where it all began. "Let's channel that energy. Let's experiment with those syrups you created, expand those flavors that echo our past." In that moment, they buried themselves in culinary creative chaos, laughter melding around pistachios and lavender as they danced through new recipes together. Yet, with every stirring and mixing, the magnitude of what lay ahead loomed like an uninvited guest. Sarah could not escape the fears clawing at her heart, the fear of failing to transform their aspirations into reality, of dragging Emily into a spotlight that might expose rather than protect her. Confronting her own hesitations, Sarah forced herself to reflect. If they pursued this path of entrepreneurship, she would have to embrace not only her hopes, but also her fears. Would they truly be ready to face the judgment of critics and the harshness of potential failure? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across their kitchen, Sarah felt a resolute determination harden within her. They had survived criticism before, with resilience layered into every dish. Yet above that, they possessed a dream, innate and pure, anchored in love and hard-fought trust. "Let's take it step by step, Emily. We'll face whatever comes as a team," Sarah resolved, her heart buoyed by a new wave of courage. But even as promises were made, a question still loomed, surfacing unbidden. If they stumbled at any point, would the bond they forged withstand the trials of ambition? Driven by ambition and concealed fears, they prepared for yet another recipe. The oven hummed its familiar note of possibility. Would the blend of their passion and uncertainty lead to greatness or expose cracks too deep to mend? The sound of the oven timer jolted Sarah from her thoughts, its high-pitched beep drowning out her spiraling uncertainties. She glanced over at Emily, who was kneading dough vigorously, her movements a symphony of focus and enthusiasm. For a moment, Sarah felt engulfed by a swell of pride, watching her daughter discover her rhythm in the kitchen. This was the life they dreamed of, yet doubt continued to murmur cautions in her ear. "Mom, can you help me figure out how to shape these roles?" Emily asked, her brow furrowed with concentration. The earnestness in her voice pulled Sarah back from the brink of her anxieties. She wiped her hands on her apron, stepping forward to assist, but she couldn't shake off the underlying fear of their impending venture. Each roll they crafted together was a tiny leap into the unknown, a reminder that with every rise and fall of their baking, they were crafting their future too. "Let's try forming them into spirals, like the ones we saw at that bakery last summer," Sarah suggested, allowing her instincts to guide her hands as they worked in tandem. With each pass of the dough, she allowed herself to envision their success, not just in terms of pastries, but as a thriving mother-daughter partnership. Emily nodded, her small smile infectious, yet Sarah found it increasingly difficult to fully embrace the moment. A sense of authority hung around her like a cloak, one that she wasn't sure she was ready for. The thought of facing the world beyond their kitchen, of opening a bakery and inviting judgment, loomed darker with every roll they created. She had weathered storms before, but this was different. As they finished shaping the last of the rolls, Emily clapped her hands excitedly and sighed. "This is going to be amazing! Just think of all the people who will taste our creations!" The youthful exuberance in her daughter's voice cracked open a door in Sarah's heart, letting in a flicker of optimism. But what if their creations weren't good enough? "Right," Sarah replied, swallowing the burgeoning fear. "But remember, Emily, we also have to consider recipes that might not be received well. We can't take it for granted." The shift in tone caught Emily off guard. Disappointment flickered in her eyes. It struck Sarah heavily, as if the very weight of her worries had burst forth and darkened their moment of joy. "Mom, you're doing it again." Emily's voice cracked with frustration. "You're overthinking everything. What's wrong with just making delicious food and sharing it?" Caught off guard by her daughter's intensity, Sarah hesitated. A simmering urge to defend her fears bubbled up, only to be met with a deeper realization. Her concerns stifled Emily's ambitions, and in the process, they were losing a part of the very connection that had sparked this adventure. "Maybe you're right," she finally managed, her voice softening. "Maybe I'm scared of failing, of what it means for us if we don't succeed." Sarah sensed how her vulnerability resonated, and Emily's expression shifted from disbelief to understanding. "Mom, what if we viewed it differently? What if failure is just another way to learn?" The wisdom in Emily's words struck Sarah like lightning. Wasn't that how they had always approached cooking together, experimenting and adapting, never hiding from missteps, instead learning from each one? In that moment, a significant realization clicked for Sarah. This venture wasn't merely about creating a successful bakery, it was also about exploring and embracing their individual and shared strengths. They were, after all, building something meaningful. "Okay then," she said with newfound determination. "Let's take a leap and really dive into our favorites. Let's embrace the mistakes." The room buzzed with excitement as they began to discuss flavors, experimenting with ideas that once seemed too outrageous. Yet even with the uplift in spirits, a nagging question crept back into Sarah's mind. Were they genuinely ready to contend with harsh truths, the critics, the inevitable setbacks? As she turned to her daughter, bursting with ideas, she caught a glimmer of that initial worry reflected in Emily's eyes. After a moment's pause, it wasn't the promise of success that surfaced as the focal point. It was the prospect of potential disappointment that loomed, challenging the very foundation of their enterprise. Would their bond withstand the weight of aspirations unraveling under public scrutiny? With the dough now resting, a tension hung palpably in the air. Each exchange no longer felt like a simple discussion on baking, but rather the beginning of their intricate journey together, facing their fears and pursuing dreams sparked by both love and uncertainty. As they prepared to dive back into their kitchen adventures, Sarah realized she'd have to confront not only her doubts, but also what it meant to truly uplift Emily while navigating unknown territory. And as the first batch of rolls went into the oven, Sarah wondered, could fear and failure coexist alongside their newfound ambitions? And how would they redefine success in each other's eyes? As the sweet aroma of baking rolls wafted through the kitchen, Sarah found herself pacing, her heart racing. The simple act of baking had revealed a complex tapestry of emotions, and now, with the dough rising and crackling in the oven, she was faced with the stark reality of their venture. The kitchen, a haven only hours before, felt now like a battleground where ambition fought against insecurity. "Mom, do you think we should make a list of our favorite recipes?" Emily's voice broke into Sarah's introspection, pulling her back to the present. The eagerness in her daughter's eyes flickered with the kind of brilliance that reminded Sarah why they began this journey in the first place, a shared passion transformed into a dream. "Absolutely. But we should also consider what makes them special," Sarah replied, determined to redirect her spiraling thoughts into something constructive. Emily pulled out a notepad, her tiny handwriting scribbling as fast as her ideas flowed. With each name they wrote down, Sarah felt the burden of her doubts shift slightly. The moment was charged with potential, a glimpse into the future that beckoned with beautifully crafted pastries and a shared entrepreneurial rhythm. Yet, as they brainstormed, Sarah's mind danced precariously on the edge of possible failures. The criticism of others weighed heavily. Failure could mean disappointment for Emily, or worse, an irreparable fracture in their relationship. The undercurrent of anxiety dulled the joys of their exchanges. "Mom, we should definitely include that chocolate croissant recipe we found online, and we can call them Mommy and Me croissants," Emily exclaimed, her voice high with enthusiasm. "Sure, but maybe we could explore different flavors? What if they don't like the chocolate ones?" Sarah retorted, unwillingly slipping back into her protective instincts. Emily looked at her, eyes narrowed with determination. "Mom, it's not about what they like. It's about what we like, what we want to share with them." Her voice, so full of conviction, made Sarah's heart twist. Who was she to stifle Emily's spirit with her own fears? The words lingered in the air, and the space between them crackled with tension. Could she let go of her own apprehensions enough to give Emily the freedom to dream? Taking a deep breath, Sarah sat down beside her daughter, her resolve hardening. "You're right," she admitted, leaning into the vulnerability that she feared. "Let's focus on what we love to make. We shouldn't shy away because of what might happen." A wave of empowerment surged within her. Acknowledging her fears allowed her to step into the unknown alongside Emily rather than pulling back. "Exactly," Emily cheered, the bond between them reigniting with each radical decision. "Let's do the raspberry jam filling too. We could even add a dash of lemon for zing." Sarah nodded, a smile breaking through the remnants of her anxiety. The more they talked, the clearer it became that their creations couldn't just be about pleasing the critics. It had to come from a deeper source, their passion. Emily's enthusiasm filled the room, and Sarah felt her own resolve begin to harden like the dough they were working with, rich with potential. As the first batch of rolls emerged from the oven, golden and inviting, Sarah allowed herself to be swept up in the moment. Yet, as she placed the hot tray down, a sudden thought pierced her newfound optimism. What if they faced rejection? What if all their hard work went unnoticed, or worse, criticized? "Mom?" Emily's voice broke through, bringing Sarah back to the present. "Look, aren't they perfect?" "Yes, they are amazing." Sarah's response was instinctive, her heart swelling with pride. The connection forged in the kitchen, the laughter and the creativity, they were evidence of their growth, of triumph over uncertainty. But looming questions remained, and beneath that joy lingered the shadows of disappointment yet to come. Emboldened by the moment, Sarah prepared to face her deepest fears head-on. Tools laid out neatly, she turned to Emily, confidence growing with each passing second. "Let's do this." But as they gazed at their triumphant rolls, the kitchen clock ticked steadily, each second a reminder that their venture into the real world was fast approaching. The excitement of creation balanced with Amy's expectations flickered with an unsaid weight. Would their dreams be enough to withstand the scrutiny that awaited them? As they ventured toward the next phase of their journey, a mix of excitement and uncertainty filled the air. The joy of baking had ignited their spirits, but the stakes were climbing higher, and neither of them had any idea how the world would react. In that moment of preparation, a question echoed softly in Sarah's mind. When the time came to showcase their creations, how would the world really see them? The following days saw Sarah enveloped in anticipation and a nagging sense of urgency. With each new recipe they crafted, the sweet taste of possibility lingered tantalizingly in the air, but so did an undercurrent of doubt. As Emily humming a tune while arranging their concoctions, Sarah was bombarded by fears spiraling into scenarios of disapproval and critiques. How often had she replayed these worst-case scenarios in her mind, suffocating her aspirations? Determined to break free from this cycle, she sought inspiration in the stories of entrepreneurs who once faced rejection. There were countless tales of individuals who began in dilapidated kitchens, their dreams dismissed until they pinnacled into success. Yet, could that be her story too? Was she ready to engage with the world, knowing there was a chance it would turn away? That evening, Sarah decided to transform her anxiety into action. She grabbed a pen and paper, her thoughts racing as she began to outline a plan. First, she would organize a small gathering with close friends, a safe launchpad where feedback would feel more like encouragement than judgment. It was a tangible step forward, one that would allow her to stretch her wings without the weight of her fears crashing down on her. "Emily," she called, her heart racing with a blend of excitement and trepidation. "How about we host a tasting party for our friends? It could be a fun way to share what we've been working on." Emily's face lit up, infectious enthusiasm igniting the room. "Yes! We just need to make sure we have enough treats. What do you think they'll like?" Sarah paused, surveying the array of pastries populating their kitchen counter: chocolate croissants, raspberry jam-filled delights, and her experimental lemon scones. "Let's make a variety. It's okay if they don't all turn out great. We'll try something different next time." The words flowed out, laced with newfound clarity. The tension coiled within her, replaced with a comforting sense of belonging in this creative endeavor. Emily's unwavering belief in the pastries rekindled Sarah's own confidence. But the night before the gathering, Sarah's anxiety resurfaced, creeping like a shadow into her thoughts. What if her friends didn't enjoy their creations? What if criticisms were harsh? The flash of a familiar mental spiral sent her heart racing at odd hours, each tick of the clock serving as a countdown to her fears. Just then, a thought surfaced. How had they come to enjoy baking in the first place? It was the joy of creation, the thrill of blending flavors and experimenting that had sparked this journey in the first place. It was essential that the tasting was just as much about discovery as it was about presenting their work. With a calming breath, she slipped into bed, contemplating a new approach. Perhaps sharing the story behind their dishes, their inspirations, intentions, and the excitement of experimenting would allow the experience to resonate beyond simple culinary approval. By framing the evening as a narrative rather than simply a showcase, she could cultivate an atmosphere of connection, one in which even constructive feedback felt like stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. As the day took flight, Sarah began orchestrating the details, channeling her nervous energy into preparation. Emily danced around the kitchen, happiness radiating as she helpfully licked spoons and glittered the pastries with sugar. The bond between them felt more palpable than ever, siblings in this adventure, leaning on each other's strengths. The moment finally arrived, and their living room transformed into a cozy tasting venue, decorated with warm lights and the enticing scent of baked goods. Friends soon began to filter in, their excited chatter filling the space with warmth. Sarah's heart raced, but not with dread. It was laced with eagerness. As she welcomed them, each smile and friendly compliment pushed a little more of her anxiety aside. But in the back of her mind, uncertainty clung, whispering reminders of entrenched insecurities. Would this gathering affirm their hard work, or would it expose her fears and doubts in the harsh light of reality? As she watched her friends sample their creations, biting into fluffy croissants, a deep breath pushed through her tightened chest. Was this simply a moment, Or could it be the start of something profound? As laughter mingled with the alluring aroma of baking, Sarah felt the weight of opportunity pressing closer. The clock ticked once more, each movement a lingering echo of brewing possibilities. As she caught Emily's eye, the boldness of her daughter's belief became a beacon amid risks and doubts. Yet just as the first wave of satisfaction washed over her, another group of friends entered with a grounded confidence, accompanied by whispers that ignited Sarah's curiosity. "Have you heard about the bakery opening next week? They're going to have a competition and—" With that, Sarah felt the familiar stir of determination rising within her once again. It was a chance to face her fears, a competition that could elevate their dream beyond the walls of their kitchen. But what would it mean for her and Emily to enter such a realm? Empowered by the moment but harried by questions, Sarah pushed forward, ready to confront the world outside their haven. What lay beyond this tantalizing threshold? As the evening progressed, Sarah drew strength from the warmth of friendly faces and the delightful murmurs about their pastries. Each bite taken with joy felt like a small victory, revitalizing her faith in their shared passion. As laughter echoed through the room, she couldn't help but glance at Emily, noticing the way her daughter's eyes sparkled with pride. This was their moment, a celebration of their hard work, an opportunity to showcase their journey. But lurking in the background was an insistent whisper, urging her to take the next step. As talks about the competition swirled among guests, that whisper transformed into a clarion call. What if they entered the competition? The opportunity seemed filled with potential, buzzing with excitement, yet the weight of doubts pressed against Sarah's chest. Was she truly ready for such exposure? What if they faced criticism? "Mom," Emily's voice cut through her thoughts, breaking the tension like fresh dough rising in a warm oven. "Should we do it? This competition sounds amazing." Gathering her courage, Sarah looked into her daughter's hopeful eyes. This was not just about baking. It was about allowing Emily to step boldly into the world, to reclaim a narrative that had often eluded them. "If you want to, we can absolutely enter," she replied, her tone imbued with renewed conviction. "We've come so far, and we're only just beginning." In that moment, Sarah realized that what they were creating was not merely a bakery or a collection of recipes. It was a legacy of resilience woven through the cakes and pastries that delighted their friends. They were no longer resting with the shadows of others' perceptions. They were stepping into their own light. As they prepared their submission for the competition, Sarah and Emily worked with a serene intensity, every ingredient blended with purpose, each layer constructed with love. They shifted between laughter and constructive chatter, harnessing the fears that originally held them down, morphing those doubts into positive energy. The competition was not alone a test of skill, but a chance to redefine how they saw themselves. "Let's make our dessert represent us, our journey," Emily suggested, inspired by the thought of sharing their story through their creation. Together, they crafted a dessert that mirrored their evolution, a lemon-lavender croissant with a raspberry infusion, symbolizing the brightness they wished to embrace against the soft undertones of sweetness. As the day of the competition approached, anticipation surged within Sarah, but so did the familiar tide of nervousness. Walking onto that stage would mean presenting not only their dessert, but also their vulnerability. They would face the scrutiny of judges and the whispers of the very community that had once cast shadows on their journey. But this time was different. They were prepared for whatever awaited them, not just because of the pastries they crafted, but because of the partnership solidified through shared trials. Standing backstage, Sarah watched Emily checking their presentation, her focus unwavering. The girl who had once struggled in school now immersed herself in the artistry of baking, her spirit expansive with possibilities. "Are you ready?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with excitement. "I was born ready," Emily smiled, confidence blooming around her like the baked goods they had created together. In that moment, Sarah understood their true transformation. They were not simply battling the label of family failure, but writing a new chapter filled with empowerment, creativity, and authentic connection. As they stepped onto the stage, hearts pounding in rhythm, Sarah's gaze swept over the audience. Every face reflected the journey they had taken. Every smile a reminder that they were no longer alone. Their story was theirs to tell, and as Emily began to explain their creation, Sarah closed her eyes briefly, feeling every ounce of trepidation lift. With every intricate detail explained, every heartfelt word spoken, she felt a wave of exhilarating pride cascading through her. They had shared not only a dessert, but also the bittersweet elements of their journey. The judges tasted their creation, their expressions shifting from curiosity to surprise, and finally to delight. The sweetness of their dessert was a testament to their shared growth. As the competition came to a close, Sarah found herself enveloped in warmth, pride swelling within when they were pronounced as the winners for Best Creative Dessert. The accolades were overwhelming, yet more than that, it marked a pivotal moment of victory over their past. They had turned whispers of failure into accolades, and now stood resolute, not only as bakers, but as a team redefining perceptions. As the applause enveloped them, Sarah knew their journey was just beginning. The opening of their bakery, Fresh Whims, beckoned brightly on the horizon. With Emily by her side, she was ready to embrace the challenges that awaited. They were ready to bake a legacy, not only for themselves, but also for every whisper of doubt that had come before. Sarah realized now that they had conquered more than a competition. They had cultivated confidence through collaboration, transforming setbacks into stepping stones towards success. This journey had unfolded into something unexpectedly beautiful, and with it came the solid belief that true success lies in the strength of one's spirit and relationships. As the thunderous applause echoed in her ears, she felt a resolute calm settle deep within, knowing they would continue to rise, layer by layer together. Now, dear viewers, witness the incredible transformation of Sarah and Emily. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss more exclusive emotional stories like theirs. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and empower more tales of personal overcoming. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the magic of transformation. Your unwavering support fuels our journey. Don't wait even one more second to share.